of the phenomenology of this philosophy. Okay, because it's like if you understand that everyone sees this world as automatic of the phenomenology. Yes, that is one of the primary defects of a conditioned soul's perception. That the conditioned soul sees the material world as automatic, and that conception is destroyed in this purport. So that one word changes indicates to me that the editor didn't understand the very basic principle of Krishna consciousness, that the world appears to be automatic instead of run by higher intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the very basis of modern science and Darwinism. They cannot adjust to the fact that even though they see very, very complex activity within a single human cell, and they see that it has to be a program. They see it is a program, and they keep asking the questions of where the information comes from, as if information comes out of the void. Information comes from intelligence, and intelligence means direction, and intelligent direction means person. So do everything they can to avoid higher intelligence in the form of a person, which would mean they'd have to admit God, you see. And that kind of thinking is still somewhere in the brain of this editor. So you have to see this demonstrates the importance. And there's a couple other changes that are made, as you will find out in this.
Excuse me, Rupanagaru, sorry for interrupting. Before you go back to other edits, I didn't have the YouTube playing at the time when you were underscoring this point. So I just like to address it again as if we haven't addressed it at all. This sentence here. Now, okay, we're on 2:235 in the purport. Now we come to the first paragraph. Now we come to the point that the things which are seen by a little use of intelligence cannot be.
Animate.
Here it says animate.
See, it says
you have an older edition that says automatic.
The original edition. And the original edition says cannot be.
So cannot
be automatic.
Correct. No, that makes more sense also. I'm just wondering what your reference was to know that this is inaccurate.
Because I mean, the original book.
Philosophically, it's not accurate. I understand. I'm just wondering what your frame of reference was. That's all. Because I thought this PrabhupadaBooks.com was the original version of everything.
Yeah, I told you before it wasn't.
Uh-huh.
So this is an example. You see, animate has nothing to do with it because animate is the opposite of inanimate, and that's not what's being discussed here.
Right.
The word is automatic, and that's entirely different conception than whether things are animate or inanimate. Any idiot can see everything is animate.
Right.
And but the automatic is not so evident. You see the subtlety here? And that is the kind of thing that happens when philosophy is adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
And these little things mean a lot.
Can I make one point about the copy? So this one here, can you see it? This one has automatic. Okay. And this one.
Which one has automatic?
This one, which is one of the KBI books, that says automatic.
It doesn't show up very well because you've got the background. When you have the background.
How do I get that off?
Never mind. You hold it up again slowly.
Okay.
Yeah, there, we can see it. We understand that.
Okay, so anyway, that one, but this one, which is gonna, you see that?
Yeah, the newer one.
This one has animate.
But that's wrong.
Well, so this book is not, I mean, I'm really sorry because Giudiratti he gave me as many of them as I want. I mean, actually, he'll let anybody take as many as they want because
I told you before about this Giudiratti's distribution. See, it's not accurate because I told you before that he does make a compromise with Jayadoita's translations in the first two cantos because he was after an index. And in order to keep an index, which had been beyond his capacity to formulate, he wanted to use the old index. And for that way, he rationalized the fact and he told me himself that he thought the Jayadvaita's corrections were okay. But this one, I don't know about that, and I don't agree with it offhand, but this is proof we're just discussing now that that's an incorrect assumption. His volumes, as beautiful as they are not the original. Some of them are. Some of the first two cantos, I mean, I haven't investigated because I gave my set away. I gave my set away as soon as I found out about this. So it doesn't matter. We have the original here. And when we go over this, we can just go over through it, and you can read yours or whoever, and we'll just have to note the corrections because there are a few other changes that were made, and I consider those changes important also. But the most important one is this word here, automatic. You see,
Thank you for making us aware of that. We wouldn't have known.
It's my opinion, that this particular verse and particular purport is extremely important. Very important for our self-realization because it calls attention to the Lord in the heart, which is a very important understanding. Okay, so I mean, you know, we got sort of started here, but at least we got this part corrected. Nobody else is present?
We've got, how many have we got here? We've got 1, 2. We got Jivan Mukta, Ananda Dev, Ananda Hari, yourself, Madhavi, Anutama, and myself. So there's
Okay,
7.
so pretty much everybody was brought up to date then. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So,
We're going to start from the beginning of the purport?
yeah, we're going to start from the verse. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is there in every living being, along with the individual soul, and this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help of the intelligence. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading, and everyone keep up on whatever they've got. And as soon as you find any change, then you have to speak up because it's important that we know it. Okay, so I'm going to start now. First of all, the verse is agreed upon. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help of the intelligence. I think that everyone agrees on that. The general argument of the common man is that since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can we either surrender unto him or render transcendental loving service unto him? To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception.
I heard a change.
What was that?
In the second line, you said, Lord is not visible to our eyes. How can we either surrender to him? And in this version, it says, how can one either surrender unto him or render transcendental loving service? Is that correct that you read it like that?
Yes.
How can we?
To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Actually, the Lord is not perceivable by our present materialized senses. So what is it you noticed?
You said we in the second line. On this, I don't know how it is in your book, but it's in the first sentence. It's in the first sentence. How can one? I think you said, how can we either surrender unto him? It's a small change, but I just wanted to point it out.
I'm trying to figure it out here. Okay. Oh, how can one? Yeah, it says how can one. Did I say we?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's my mistake. So listen carefully. To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Actually, the Lord is not perceivable by our present materialized senses. But when one is convinced of the presence of the Lord by practical service attitude, there is a revelation by the Lord's mercy. And such pure devotee of the Lord can perceive the Lord's presence always and everywhere. He can, however, perceive that intelligence is the form direction of the Paramatma plenary portion of the Lord, a portion of the personality of Godhead. He can, however, perceive that intelligence is the form direction of the Paramatma plenary portion of the personality of Godhead. So far, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that when one can be convinced of this by a practical service attitude. In other words, the devotee has to understand and admit, first of all, the presence of the Supersoul. And that's part of the basic part of our philosophy. So that is assumed, that everyone understands that there is the Lord in the heart present, whether we perceive him or not. Then Srila Prabhupada goes on.
There's also a however missing, it seems, in the translation I have.
However, where? He can, however?
It says in the one that I have in my phone, he can perceive that intelligence.
He can, however. So however is important because it presents an opposite.
Yes, exactly.
He can,
Just
however, make a note in whatever translation you have. He can, however, see? And this is important because it's said that even if one, in other words, a person who is not a pure devotee and does not have this full realization, still he can, however, see, perceive that intelligence is the form direction of the Paramatma plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then he says, presence of the Paramatma is in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for the common man. The procedure is as follows. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. He may not feel it very abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that the hand, the leg, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels, but as such, the hand, the leg, the head, and so on cannot be identified with his self. Okay. So what the self is the observer. Srila Prabhupada is calling attention to us as an observer, that we can observe that the bodily parts, such as the hand, the leg, and head, cannot be identified as the observer or as a self. The distinction is clear between the observer and what is being observed. The distinction is clear between the observer and the body, which is one of the things we're observing. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go on. Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate himself from the other things he sees. So you have to excuse me, I have to make a comment here as we go along. One thing is, by a little use of intelligence. So intelligence is an absolute requirement, not sentiment, but intelligence is an absolute requirement to understand the difference between the body and the self. Srila Prabhupada has mentioned intelligence is the next door neighbor of the soul. And it is on the basis of intelligence that we understand Shastra. It is not by some kind of intuition, it is by use of intelligence. The use of what intelligence actually does is clearly described by the third canto by Kapila Dev to Mother Devahuti, wherein he explains the different functions of the subtle body. And he talks, there's a few verses discussing about what this intelligence does, which distinguishes it from the mind. So here it says, by a little use of intelligence, we can readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or move independently. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. So here Srila Prabhupada is explaining that although we can see things beyond ourselves and recognize them as different from ourselves, the observer, by ordinary vision, we don't have any power to do that, to see or move independently. And now he explains why. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. Like our eye, for example. Without light, we cannot see. Without light, we cannot see. So that is supplied to us. We're not independent, even in the use of the eye, because our eye requires light. Actually, the eyes work on heat and light. So when your eyes get tired, you can put a cool compress on your eye, and it will help. The eyes get tired watching the screen. The eyes get tired reading a book, and they need to be cooled down because they get overheated because they're working on light, which includes heat. The eye runs on heat and light, and it gets overheated. It has to be cooled down. So here we're going on to further proof how our senses or our sense perceptions are not independent. Our senses of perception and of action, that is to say, our 5 perceptive senses: 1, hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell. I'm sorry, I give the numbers. Perception senses of 1, hearing, 2, touch, 3, sight, 4, taste, and 5, smell, as well as our 5 senses of action, namely 1, hands, 2, legs, 3, speech, 4, evacuation organs, and 5, reproductive organs, and also our 3 subtle senses, namely 1, mind, 2, intelligence, 3, ego, 13 senses in all, are supplied to us by various arrangements of gross or subtle forms of natural energy. And it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. So, Srila forms. Huh?
Go ahead.
Srila Prabhupada is explaining that it's all energy supplied to us in various forms, which we call senses. And then the senses that, for example, we don't usually break it down this way, but this is the way it works. The object of the senses is not what we're seeing, it's the function. The object of the sense of eye is seeing. The object of the sense of hearing is hearing. The sense object is what is heard. The sense object is what is seen. But the object of the sense seeing is the object of the sense of the eye sense is seeing. The object of the nose is smelling. The object of the skin is touching. And what their touch, what's seen, what's smelled are all sense objects. So there's a difference between objects of the senses and sense objects. So it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products, and now Shabbat is talking about sense objects, that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. In other words, we look at a tree and we call it, like we live in the world of names, we look at a tree and we call it a tree. But the French will say l'arbre, and someone else will say something else. So these names are not accurate in the sense that it's all energy. And we call it, tree is called a tree, or the energy we see as a tree has different names depending on where you're born. But we're looking at energy, and Srila Prabhupada is saying that what are objects of perception, excuse me, are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy, i.e. a tree, a cloud, a cow, a cloud, a river, anything. These are all natural energies. We give them names. And this is one of the ways that we're in the illusion. That people think that giving things a name is knowledge. It's not knowledge. It's description. It's a nomenclature. But the knowledge is to know that the energy is Krishna's energy. So, okay, so can we stop here?
Okay.
See if there's anybody with any questions or comments. And I'm trying to explain this thing the best I can.
To me, it sounds pretty basic, so I have really nothing.
It does sound pretty clear. Gaura Prabhu, in the settings, your mic seems louder than Rupanuga. So it's like turning up and down the volume. In the settings, I think is it input one?
Okay.
I'll check it.
Thank
So
you.
let's go on.
Oh, wait, I wanted to say one thing, but even though you're saying it's very basic, it's actually a completely different way of looking at things than what we normally do. And so maybe Prabhupada is suggesting that we kind of try to perceive the world in this other, it's more of a frequency form,
I'm surprised you said basic, because this is really not basic. This is really not basic at all. What it is, it's an introspective usage of our intelligence to perceive things as they are. Even though we perceive the same things ordinarily anyway, Srila Prabhupada is teaching us here how to look at things philosophically, which means a platform of intelligence. So all this is basic, apparently basic, but what Srila Prabhupada is doing now is breaking down the basics so that they make sense from the Krishna conscious point of view.
But it's impossible to have this awareness, like for instance, if you were having a conversation in which you were trying to impart some Krishna consciousness to a karmi, and to be aware of, what's, the sensory inputs that are coming in, and how the Supersoul is giving you the intelligence to say the right thing to that person, and being aware of all, somehow or other Krishna arranged to put this individual in front of me. And now I am trying to access this information so that I can relay it to somebody else. And I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem automatic to me to be able to do that, because I'm so accustomed to thinking I'm the one, I'm learning the philosophy and then I'm giving it to them, but it's actually all being done by Krishna, I guess.
This also
this is an exercise of intelligence. To prove to us it's required. Some devotees they talk about, it's the heart and not the head. It's actually the head. It's not as if the intelligence is the head and the sentiment or emotions are in the heart. No, intelligence is in the heart too. It's all in the heart. It's all in the heart. It's not just a question of intuition, or it's all in the heart. The Supersoul is in the heart too. So it's all taking place. But we have our senses. This body's like a periscope. You've seen the movies, where the submarine movies where the captain says, "Up, periscope," and he goes, pushes the thing up, puts his arm over the handles, and starts peering through out into the other world. So we're like that. We're down here in the heart, and we got a periscope up here like this, and it's got all our senses, and we're looking out at the world. Does that make sense?
And you can't take it all in. It's impossible because you don't have enough intelligence to take it all in.
You see, so we're like that officer looking through the periscope outside, you see. So this periscope comes up and goes out through our heads. And most people think they're in their heads because all the senses are there. But they're not. They're down here in the heart, looking up through this periscope out into the world through these things.
I never thought of it that way.
what is being perceived is it's really what you can reach out to people with, according to Prabhupada's philosophy, you know, this understanding of the material existence for people who have no faith in spiritual consciousness, this sort of real dose of reality of what the material existence that Prabhupada gives in this is a really strong preaching.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. This does not require actually a knowledge of the devotional science. It doesn't. What it requires is a use of intelligence. That's why he says, an even ordinary man, but most people's intelligence is ruined by so many sinful things from childhood. The boys and girls mix it up early, and Srila Prabhupada said, therefore, intelligence is lost. They take alcohol, which destroys the finer tissues of the brain. So intelligence requires a physical basis for manifestation, and not a misuse of the body, you see. So what you're pointing out is very good, except most people don't have the equipment that's required in the brain, because the brain is supposed to be nourished by, say, the finer tissues of the brain have to be nourished by milk, for example. And the finer tissues of the brain are destroyed by meat. So we're not dealing with persons who have had even an ordinary. Gauravdas, what's happening?
I'm listening.
Okay. So, they don't have the equipment. See, even though this is such common sense to us, although it really isn't, this is an attempt by Srila Prabhupada to show us from a different, like it was just made, the point was just made, to show us Krishna conscious philosophy on a phenomenological level, on a conscious perceptual level, you see, with intelligence. So it's okay. So we'll go on unless someone else has another.
I had a small question about Prabhupada's using the term of natural energy, whereas a lot of times he says the material energy, and
Yeah.
if there was some reason for that here, due to it being spiritual energies as well as material energies in what he's talking about.
Yeah, natural. He's using the words by goes to subtle forms and everything supplied to us, the 13 senses and all, are supplied to us by various arrangements of gross or subtle forms of natural energy. This means the actual composition of our senses. It also means what we're looking at. In other words, we're not the creators. We're using, or we're being supplied through various forms of energy, our experience. So that includes our own bodies, our own senses, and whatever we're looking at. But this is natural. See, it has nothing to do with our manipulations. You see, it's natural.
Okay, yeah.
Natural arrangement that's made by the Supreme Lord. And that's what the problem is the scientists have when they look at the cell, the internal actions of the cell. They don't understand it's natural. They see it as very complex, but for Krishna, it's natural. And for a devotee, it's natural. But they have to make a big deal out of it because it's part of Maya, that they're going to get totally absorbed in the cell workings without understanding why, or why it's working, or why they're even interested. They get lost in the permutations of energy itself.
Right.
And they think they can understand everything with their own intelligence, but they won't admit a higher intelligence that's made the arrangement they're looking at. And Srila Prabhupada said, this is all natural energy. It doesn't require their investigation. It doesn't require their understanding. It's going to go on anyway. So anybody else have a question or comment? Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to real quick make a comment. I'm not sure how much related it is, but when you mentioned about like putting a cold compress on the eyes, they get overheated to restore balance in the eyes. I thought of like how devotees where we wear chandan to keep the third eye area cool so that it doesn't overheat through our devotional processes where we that tends to be more active in devotees. So I just thought that was like interesting that
Yeah.
I don't know, is
think
my
it-
mind related to that?
Good. My example was just something I've done personally. Once I understood the philosophy that the eyes work on heat and light, I understood when my eyes got tired, they were overheated because they were used, say for watching the screen or writing a lot, especially watching a screen like this, as Goran knows himself, that actually the eyes get tired and they water. They'll actually, you can be overheated and have to relax. So I mentioned putting a cold compress. Just what I do is I take a paper towel, just cold water, make a little square and put it on. Immediately I can feel some relief from the coldness is reducing the heat.
Ayurveda recommends rose water because rose plant itself energetically is cooling.
Well,
Prabhupada also said,
yeah.
yes,
If you look at what the
Go ahead.
list I gave you, Shilpapa's remedies, for tired eyes, he gives remedy.
I didn't
One
get
thing-
that list from you. You never sent it to me. If you did, I never saw it. I'm sorry. I was looking forward to it.
No, anyway, he describes there, I'll make a note.
Thank you.
I have your address, I think. Everybody should have a copy of this.
I want one too, so send it to me. Or
Okay,
Gora, you can send it to everyone when you get it.
Prabhupada's home remedies.
And if
Yeah.
someone-
I mean, who wouldn't want that?
He
Absolutely.
mentions about tired eyes. He mentions honey, putting a drop of honey in the eye. So I got it here.
One time I went to see a traditional Chinese medical doctor in Montreal, in Chinatown. She'd been practicing for 24 years. She took my pulse and she said, "You have too much fire in your body." I said, "Fire?" I said, "You mean like staring at a computer screen for many hours a day?" She said, "Yes, definitely." Because she said that all that electricity that's coming out of the computer screen is like fire. I know my god sister Sarvani, sometimes she has pain in her eyes because of too much absorbing fire from the computer screen. So that's something to be considered.
Fire means heat.
Yeah.
It's the heat. It's the heat. So I'm looking, I don't have access to that list right now, but anyway, that Shilbaba mentions that. He mentions something else too about tired eyes, but he does mention honey, a drop of honey. Okay, so anyone else?
There's just one point here that really jumps out at me, where the spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence.
Well, aren't you going ahead?
Oh, sorry, my
Yeah,
apologies.
we're
Following your discussion.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're not jumping.
Yeah, no, I misplaced where I was. I was just scanning it there, and it jumped. I was reading it earlier on, and that jumped out. I thought we had got to that, so my
No,
apologies.
let's just take it step by step.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're leaving off here with and it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. And this conclusively proves that the ordinary living being has no independent power of perception or of motion. And as we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by nature's energy, we conclude that he who sees is spirit, and the senses, as well as the objects of perception, are material. This is important. This is the conclusion. And this conclusively proves that the ordinary living being has no independent power of perception or of motion. And as we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by nature's energy, we conclude that he who sees is spirit, and the senses, as well as the objects of perception, are material. So here Shilpa is differentiating between the seer and the seen. And this he calls the seer spiritual. As make it clear what the distinction is. In other words, the seer is spiritual and what he's seeing is material. This requires a little leap of faith at this point, that we can call. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada also, the philosophy also mentions superior spiritual energy and inferior spiritual energy. The inferior spiritual energy is the material energy, which we call material energy, and the superior spiritual energy is the seer, or the observer. So that fits our philosophy. Sometimes we think matter and spirit as being so diametrically opposed, but actually matter is simply spiritual energy covered by the diluting potency of the Lord. So it appears to be material. The Srila Prabhupada is saying the difference between the seer and the seen is that the seer is spiritual and the seen is material. So the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, okay. As this conclusively proves that the ordinary living being has no independent power of perception or emotion, and as we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by the nature's energy, we conclude that he who sees the spirit and the senses, as well as the objects of perception, are material. The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of material conditioned existence. So that's what you were calling attention to before, the sentence. So you have some comment on that?
Yeah, it just seemed that through the verse, that it describes what we're not. We're not the body. We're not the action, the hands and the action senses and every other sense. And therefore, if we cannot be any of those things, then what we are that is observing those things must be spiritual. So that to me was the link between the point at which there is no faith required in some sense, because it's logically that there's something observing things that we are not.
Right.
Or we must be that which is observing those things, and then which we can call spirit as a sort of stepping off point into spiritual life. But in that verse, in that sentence that I read out, I can't see it now. I'm just finding it on my.
The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence.
Does that mean we all go through that sort of, to come to spiritual life in the first place?
It means all these experiences in this material world that are dissatisfying, which means the distresses, which means the three impositions of adhyatmic, adhidaivic, adhibautic. You see, that's the world in which we live in. Every moment, one of the three is acting upon us, either adhyatmic, adhidaivic, or adhibautic. One or three every moment. So this causes dissatisfaction because that interferes with our sense gratification. You see, interferes with peace of mind. You see, so when the dissatisfaction comes with a limited state of materially conditioned existence. What is that limited state of material existence, of material conditioned existence? Birth, death, old age, and disease, and all the problems that come with having a body. It's like me right now. I've got this lung infection. Who wants it? It's dissatisfying. But it's part and parcel of existence of this material world. So this means that people, and this is the thing, people won't admit how dissatisfied they are because they don't think there's any choice. They think disease, old age, this is a fact of life. That's the way life is. We've evolved to this point where we just have to die. I mean, that's about it. So what do you do when you're faced with that kind of a nihilistic existence? Well, you try to enjoy yourself as much as you can. Try to enjoy your senses as much as you can. See, it's a defeatist. This whole material philosophy is defeatism. As if if you take evolution in mind, suppose we have evolved this way through so much. Could it possibly be that the whole point of evolution is simply to die? It doesn't make sense. But because people don't have the questioning spirit, which is squeezed out of them by all the things they eat and do, as well to speak of education. See, so we have to wake it up. We have to wake them up, and the Holy Name does that. The Holy Name will do that. The Holy Name stimulates the soul's perception, and we accentuate that with our preaching. You see,
And on the other side, people can then take some comfort in going through difficult experiences, you know, rather than as a materialist. There's no comfort in miserable experiences, but for someone who's aspiring to be a devotee, there's some comfort in those difficult, no matter how difficult, no matter how miserable, there's comfort.
yeah,
in the
based
fact-
on it's based on knowledge. It's based on knowledge of why it's happening to me, why it's designed this way, what the purpose of it is. I mean, the purpose of birth, death, old age, and disease, there has to be a purpose. So that purpose is there. It's Krishna's design. Okay, so the more one understands Krishna's design, the more free of ignorance it becomes. That's what this movement is about: freeing people from the ignorance of life. So,
Can I say one thing about the dissatisfaction before we go on? I think it's because of the temporary nature of it. I think that it could be really, that's not natural for the soul to be in this temporary situation. And I think that's where all this dissatisfaction, because when I think of what I'm dissatisfied with, it's always the uncertainty of it's not going to last.
yeah, the limited state of materially conditioned existence that covers that. That's the point. Dissatisfied with what are the limited states of material conditioned existence? Right now, people are experiencing a whole adibotic from the government, from medical science, other living entities, right, are imposing. So it comes in different forms. Sometimes it's karmic reaction, like this going on now. It comes in the form of medical abuse or whatever you want to call it. People are often just simply getting the karma they've got coming. See? But they don't understand that because they don't understand the philosophy. They don't understand the laws of karma. So the spiritual quality of the seer is manifest. That's really good sentence too. So no one else has any question, we may go on. That is the difference between spirit and matter. The dissatisfaction. See, there are some less intelligent arguments that matter develops the power of seeing and moving at a certain stage, a certain organic development. There are some less intelligent arguments that matter develops the power of seeing and moving as a certain organic development. But such an argument cannot be accepted because there's no experimental evidence that matter has produced anywhere a living entity. Trust no future, however pleasant. Idle talks regarding future development of matter into spirit are actually foolish because no matter has ever developed the power of seeing or moving in any part of the world. So, any further observations? Again, Srila Prabhupada is showing how they're not actually practicing scientific method, because scientific method means you have a proposal or hypothesis, and you make a demonstration, which can be repeated. So they're not practicing science. They're not practicing scientific method. They're simply speculating without proof. There's no proof of evolution, Darwinism evolution.
One time brought that subject up to a PhD mathematician professor, and he came back with this whole evolutionary thing that, yeah, they have actually got some consciousness out of mixing amino acids. So you can just see how, it's like as soon as they have this PhD degree, their intelligence is completely, because this is very easy to see. it's very easy to see that consciousness doesn't come from matter, but their intelligence can be covered over to the point that better to give them prasadam.
Fanatism.
I've gone into evolution groups on Facebook, and I've tried to present intelligent design, and I see how fanatical, like worse than a fundamentalist Christian. Oh, don't bring any religion in here. Don't bring any religious ideas in here. You know, we disproved
Well,
that years ago. Um, and so I see, wow, they're worse than born again Christian fundamentalists who don't necessarily present much philosophy, but just say that you got to believe in Jesus or you're going to go to hell. So
science,
they're saying the same thing. You got to believe in Darwin or you're just an idiot.
scientism, which is the blind belief on science, is just as much as a religion as any other doctrine there that don't have, you know. So scientism is just another doctrine, and a lot of people become just as fanatic as any other thing.
Uh-huh.
And in either case, there's no evidence, you see. It's just a matter of faith. Science is a faith. When we start talking about origin of life and evolution, it's just their faith.
Yeah. And if you talk against that, they get upset instead of being a proper scientist and being open-minded and try to learn instead of closing yourself and being 100% atheistic, materialistic, just because that's what their book said, instead of being a proper scientist and being open-minded and try to learn about the spirit. And then they will understand more about the nature of their material world.
I remember Sariputta Prabhu years ago in one lecture from San Diego, he was saying that previously metaphysics, which was believed in by Louis Pasteur and Sir Isaac Newton, was considered to be a proper science. It was regarded as a science, but due to the influence of the Industrial Revolution, metaphysics was cast to the side.
I wanted to say one thing too about a belief versus faith. And, you know, it's interesting the way Krishna does so many coincidences that a lot of times our words, you know, the word belief is actually be lie, you know, like this be a lie. So a lot of times things that we believe are actually lies. Whereas to me, when I think of faith, I think that's, you know, that's more coming from Paramatma. So, which I think what this whole discussion today is really between belief and faith.
But the scientists, they also have their belief or faith in what they can't prove, but which they've speculated on being true.
But that's why it's a lie. So it be lie. So it's, whereas the faith is something having a little bit of love in your heart would allow you to develop faith. Whereas I don't think in science there's really it's just a belief, you know, it's like I believe that life comes from matter, and there's nothing you can say if you have somebody at that, you know, they won't open up beyond that because their intelligence is covered over.
Maya Parityajna, and knowledge is stolen by illusion.
That's why science will never progress if it's not open to spiritual knowledge.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, they actually don't even deserve the title of scientist, because
Yes.
the word science comes from the root word to know, scare, Latin word.
Right.
And to know, science means to know, not maybe, or perhaps, or in the future, or we're working on it, or give us time, give us more money for research, and we'll produce an answer. But that's not science. That's not science. That's an income. That's all. It's just an income.
That's it.
So science means to know, and that's why we Our faith in Krishna consciousness is not based simply on faith alone. It's based on knowledge, because Srila Prabhupada proves to us how Bhakti Yoga works. And Bhakti Yoga is a science, and if we practice the science, we get the result. It's like anyone can make an experiment. You can challenge them. Well, make this experiment. Chant Hare Krishna for 10 minutes in the morning, or 5 minutes in the morning before you go to work. It's anything like that, because that will definitely change their consciousness, even if they just chant a little bit. So it's an experiment that people have to be willing to make, you see, and they can be explained to them as an experiment. You take it
You
home.
get benefit without, if you were chanting just, because I don't believe this, but I'm just trying it as an experiment. Yeah, because the holy name's absolute. Yeah.
It's going to work.
Yeah.
It's going to work. If they have enough faith to chant, it will work, and it will take them further. But a person doesn't have enough faith, it doesn't believe in what you say, or you're not your friend, or whatever it takes to convince them to try it. Just try it and see for yourself. It's an experimental for the individual, you see. That's why Srila Prabhupada was saying in the end, when he wanted to go on the parikrama and they didn't want to take him, he said, oh no, experiment. You like to experiment. Here, experiment. Let's take me out there and see what happens. That didn't work. It didn't work, but he was using that argument. So people like to experiment. Well, let them experiment with this, because it's sound vibration. It's mantra. Man means mind, and tra means releasing. So you tell them this experiment with this will relieve you of anxiety. It will give you peace of mind. And this is not compromise. It's a side effect of chanting. It happens to everybody who tries it. They become more peaceful. They become free of some anxiety. The distress level is reduced. Well, these are all side effects. So they want to pay attention to side effects to get started, fine. Because further along the line, more things will happen. But to begin with, those are basics. That's why this freedom from distress is described as one of the 4 reasons, or 4 people that come to Krishna consciousness, for relief of distress. And when they get that distress relieved, they tend to go away. First of all, they're the first persons to leave when the distress is relieved. But we have to explain to them that there's further experience to go on, and don't give up. Just because you think a little distress is relieved, a little peace of mind, that now it's over. No, it's just a beginning, you see. Okay, so where are we here? There's no, idle talks, we did that. Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are 2 different entities, and this conclusion is arrived at by the use of...
Different entities or identities?
Okay. Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are 2 different identities.
Identities, okay.
And this conclusion is arrived at by the use of intelligence. Now, we come to the point that the things which are seen by little use of intelligence cannot be automatic unless we accept someone as the user of or director of the intelligence. So this is important sentence. Now come to the point. This is a step in logic we're taking to Srila. Now we come to the point that the things which are seen by little use of intelligence cannot be automatic unless we accept someone as the user of or director of the intelligence. Intelligence gives one direction like some higher authority, and the living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. Now Srila Prabhupada is hinting at the presence of the Supersoul, the higher intelligence. It's developing now about how to perceive. So this is a very important transition sentence here. Intelligence gives one direction like some higher authority. And the living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. So let's hear some comments on this.
Well, you think he says living entities, so we live on a farm. And so it's really interesting to see how animals use their intelligence. And it's very predictable. Mostly they want treats. But they can come up with all kinds of really interesting ways of getting our attention and getting us to be sympathetic you know, anyway, you can definitely see that they're also, you know, Supersoul is directing, giving them the intelligence to figure out how to fulfill their desires. So, you know, they're not that different than we are if we're living in the same material, you know, after the same four things. So,
Can you give an example of how they get your attention to give them a treat?
okay, so yesterday,
You want me-
oh, okay,
ahead. No,
Billy's the
yesterday.
one that has some, here's Billy, he's here.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Billy.
Hare Krishna. I don't have the best memory, but when I go out in the morning to feed, we have a cat who gets right in front of me and herds me over to where she eats, so that I don't forget her. She understands I don't have a good memory. So that the cat is higher intelligence than me. Okay. Done.
You get ambushed by your cat.
Every day.
The cat is being given some opportunity for service.
I'll tell you, yesterday we had a little girl over and I let the horse out because little girls just love horses. And the horse was actually really attracted because we don't have children around very much. And so she's never had a foal and she's always been totally attracted by baby cows. And then here was a baby, well, not a baby human, you know, a human foal. So she was really, really attracted. But then when she had everybody's attention kind of crowding around, she goes over to a container that could theoretically hold grain, and she looks in it, you know, and kind of puts her note. I mean, most people didn't notice what she was doing, but I knew exactly what she was saying. Like, there could be some sweet feed put in here, you know. So yeah, they use their intelligence to kind of charm us. We didn't have any grain though, because grain has gone up from like $10 a bag to $20 a bag.
Wow.
Yeah, the treats that the animals are getting are more, you know, what we can manifest from the land.
Srila Prabhupada said that some animals are attracted to human beings. And he mentions the cows and horses.
Yeah.
And cats and dogs. These animals are especially attracted to association with human beings. And that's, you know, that's historically everyone's experience. Well,
I think maybe they were human beings and you know, they got an animal body for whatever
well,
reason.
the cow becomes a human being in the next birth.
That's what I was thinking about it last night. Like a dog, a cat, a cow, a horse. I feel like they are so attracted to a human being because in the next lifetime they will probably how you call it? Be a human being. That's why they sort of learning so much. That's why they want to be so close to us.
Well, cows, I know cows become human beings. I think from what I understand, a lot of times animals like dogs and cats, they were just human beings that were like overly attracted to dogs and cats. And they, you know, they aren't necessarily, I mean, I don't know where they go after that, but it depends
Well,
on.
there's Srila Prabhupada explains there's pious and impious in every species, just like in a tree that gives pine cones is an impious tree. A tree that gives fruits is a pious tree. A dog, like a shepherd, a German shepherd, can be trained to do all kinds of good things, like being a seeing eye dog, being a war dog. Some amongst the animals, there's also pious and impious creatures. It just depends. Then these other living entities that are attracted to human beings, they get a special attention because they hear their Maha Mantra, they get prasadam, they get, you know, they get the association of devotees. So they're special categories, special horses, special cats, special dogs, and they are often treated as family members. Even in this description, Lord Chaitanya was throwing scraps of prasadam to a dog that had come into association, and that the dog went back to Godhead. So anyway, I'm just making a point that we're discussing now. By using a little intelligence, we're describing some of these, how that there's a difference between matter and spirit, between the seer and the seen, between spirit and matter. Say,
When I was in the hospital just a few weeks back, and I had to spend 7 hours at a time over 2 days each day. I don't know if I mentioned that I met a Mennonite farmer and like an Amish farmer, and I told him how, I respected them, that they were spiritual people, but I said I couldn't understand how they couldn't understand that animals were also a soul.
Mm.
And he was saying, well, in the Bible it doesn't say that animals have a soul. It says only humans are souls. I said, so then how do you explain that there's life in an animal if there's not a soul present? You mean to tell me that that life is being created by chemicals? Because if life is not coming from life, it must be coming from chemicals. Does it make sense that life is in a human being because there's a soul and life is coming from chemical? Because I could see he wasn't thinking. He wasn't considering what the source of life was in an animal. He couldn't. He took a Bhagavad Gita from me as a gift, which I thought was a great accomplishment to give an Amish or a Mennonite person
Hmm.
a Gita. But I just could see they just, I don't know. It's hard to understand how they can't understand that life must come from soul and can't come from matter.
We understand wherever there's life, there's spirit soul. That's why we know blades of tufts of grass have souls. That's why we know trees have souls. Wherever there's life, there's spirit soul. And there's consciousness. It's just not developed. The tree's consciousness is there, but not really developed. So our rule of thumb is wherever there's life, there's spirit soul, whatever form it may take, whether it's an amoeba, a little amoeba, or fish, or a tree, or a cloud. Actually, clouds have spirit souls also. So, and even hills do. Even some stones, like Shiv Baba was walking on a morning walk on New Hastinapur by the canal, and he said, "Why do these pebbles keep jumping into my shoes?"
Because they know it's Prabhupada's lotus feet.
So some stones have souls. Also, mountains have a soul, have a spirit, have their conscious, their spiritual conscious.
But for them, if it ain't in the Bible, then it don't exist.
But good job in getting him to take a Bhagavad Gita. I mean, that's awesome because it will be there and he will occasionally look at it and it'll probably speak to him each time because even if he just reads one, even if it opens it at random and reads one sentence, I mean, what a huge benefit.
Yeah. That's
And I
right.
wanted to say one thing about, so the intelligence, obviously human beings have a higher level of intelligence, and that's right next to, where did it say that the intelligence is right so close to the spirit, that the two things are very closely intertwined. So
In
does that
one
mean,
lecture, Prabhupada says that Supersoul is that the Lord is closer to you than your jugular vein, as the Supersoul. Closer than your jugular vein. He's so close.
but I'm thinking of intelligence, like, so does the soul in the spiritual world have its own intelligence? I mean, or is that always just what comes from Krishna? That,
No. The soul has its intelligence either in the material world or the spiritual world. We have our intelligence. We dovetail it with Krishna's by accepting his. That's how we use our intelligence. Our intelligence is used to make a choice, whether we want to follow. Now, I want to make the point here about, I keep saying that this is very important, that intelligence gives one direction like some higher authority. This is very important because everything we do requires this intelligence. And so as devotees, how does it apply to us as devotees, you see? We don't want to receive intelligence from, we don't want to receive direction from the Supreme Lord in the heart for sense gratification. We want to receive direction from him to serve better, to be better devotees, to be more sense-controlled, to be more service to the cause, to more appreciate your Bhava, and so on and so on. We have to get direction just like everybody else. See, the difference between devotees and non-devotees is they're getting direction from the Lord as an order supplier for their sense gratification. But we get also instructions from the Lord in the heart. And we have to make sure that we don't unconsciously or unknowingly call on him for instruction for sense gratification, because we'll get it, you see. He will give instruction according to desire of the spirit soul. And that's why some devotees go away, because they want instruction how to do it. They make a choice, a free will choice. I don't want to go any further, or I want to do something else. And the Lord will give direction. All right, you insist. He'll of course try to convince, but if that doesn't work, then he'll give instruction on it. Whatever people do requires direction from the super soul. But it's so fast, it appears to be automatic. It's so fast. It's so quick. Intelligence is very short, very quick.
Can I give an example that just happened a couple days ago of Billy using his intelligence in an emergency? When our ox went down, well, we were sleeping and we heard the most horrible sound. And, and then all the cows just started crying. And it was like 3:30 in the morning. So we went running out there. And poor Makani, our oldest ox, he was laying there and all the cows were really distressed, and he was like, the sound that was coming from him was like the amount of pain was almost unbearable for us to hear. And his body was bloated up like a balloon. So it's like we could immediately see that there was gas stuck in his gut. And the only thing you can do, there's no time to call a vet or anything because he'd be dead within minutes. And so Billy had to take a knife and jab right into the gut. And I came back to watch videos to see the exact location of where to do it, but somehow or other, Krishna in the heart gave him the intelligence to put it in the exact right spot. And it's like biggest fart you could ever imagine. It was like this huge amount of gas comes out. And he hadn't been able to breathe basically because his whole body cavity was just filled up with this gas. And so as the gas let out, then it was like, kind of a relief. And what an intense experience. But I just was so appreciative that Super Soul gave my husband the intelligence and actually gave me I was a little bit bossy with him because I knew I couldn't do it. And I knew it had to be done. And he did pass away anyway, but he had the whole day to slowly, the amount of pain that he was in at that instant was like unbearable for us. And he obviously seemed like he needed a little bit of time to just make that adjustment. I'm amazed I can talk about it because yesterday I was trying to find what to do with the body and I wasn't able to call my farmer friends without breaking down and crying because I was still so absorbed in the drama of it. Now I can kind of talk about it naturally. Anyway, I guess I wanted to share that.
As I wrote you in the email, it actually was time for him to get the holy name, time for you to perform whatever ceremonies you perform at this time. Give him a chance to hear and give him some life, a little bit of life. He only lived a few more hours.
Yeah, maybe 8 or 10 hours, but I could tell, Billy kept wanting to get him up and I kind of agreed with you that it really looked like this was it. It was his day to go.
Yeah.
But at least it wasn't under that excruciating because leaving in that kind of pain would have been, I think the way he went was much more natural and peaceful. So
Yeah.
anyway,
He'll take birth as a human being. And as I said in the essay, he'll probably take birth as a human being, as a devotee in a devotee's family. There's a good chance as a human being, he has some special past due to your association and your upbringing and his service. So the chances are very good he takes birth as a human being, but as a devotee or proximity to devotees. All this is all worked out, you see, by the laws of karma. But I wanted to finish up at this point.
I had a small question about it, where Prabhupada says about which are seen by the user of or director of the intelligence, the user or the director of the intelligence. Is the user the spirit soul and the director the super soul?
Yes, let's read the thing again. Now we come to the point that the things which are seen by little intelligence cannot be automatic unless we accept someone as the user of or director of the intelligence. In both cases, the user means the spirit soul and director means this one who's giving direction, just like we said before. As a superior gives intelligence or direction to a minor, a parent gives direction to a child. You see. So, so in other words, if one has to accept the direction that one's getting is coming from the super soul for whatever reason. See?
I like the application of the intelligence in spiritual life. The counter side is to see the intelligence and the mind as the seating place of lust. And sometimes devotees are maybe convinced to ignore their intelligence and ignore their mind and try to just hear the chanting. But it's nice how the application of intelligence, sorry, it's raining here heavily, so can be applied in spiritual life. It's like thoughtful, independently thoughtful intelligence.
See, if what's being said here is we cannot accept the fact that we use our intelligence as automatic. See, we use our intelligence all the time without thinking that it's a direction. See, we think it's coming from ourselves automatically by our own power. And that's the mistake the scientists make. I heard one scientist say, what do we need with a higher above the clouds intelligence? We have our we are intelligent. It's our intelligence, you see. So he doesn't want to admit a higher intelligence. We don't need a higher intelligence. We have our own intelligence. So he doesn't understand that his own intelligence is the form direction of the Lord. That he's got intelligence on how to perform his experiments. He's getting his intelligence from the Lord to do that.
Someone that says that is a perfect example of a devotee of materialism and atheism. Someone that says that kind of thing.
So are you saying that really all the soul does is desire? That really the soul, that we ourselves, really all we can do is desire. And then Krishna provides the intelligence to fulfill whatever that desire is.
And he also provides, as we read before, all the energy to do it. Because we have to remember, we're 1/10,000th tip of a hair in this big universal. But Srila Prabhupada one time referred to this body as a universe. When you think about it, a 1/10,000th tip of a hair puts us in that position. We're smaller than an atom, and there's zillions of atoms that make up this body. So we're like that. We're 1/10,000th tip of a hair, and we're dependent on all the energy that surrounds us, and that energy is all provided by Krishna. And the desire to do something with that energy comes from us, but a way to accomplish that desire is coming from Krishna.
Rupanuga Prabhu, can you comment on Prabhupada's statement, first deserve, then desire?
Comment on first deserve, then desire?
Yeah.
All right. Well, what is your idea?
Huh. That before you start desiring, make sure that your desires are pure. Because there's another saying, although I don't think Prabhupada said this, be careful what you desire for because it might come true.
Yeah. No, not might, it will. But so back to what you said about
Yes.
deserving.
First deserve, then desire.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
I guess it depends how you interpret it. I'd have to look it up to see the context in which Prabhupada spoke it.
Okay. So for us, we're told to talk from the spiritual point of view. If we have some desire for something that we want to do in spiritual life, then we have to deserve to get that desire fulfilled.
Uh-huh.
That's
So,
the other way around, kind of, isn't it?
well, we have to be in other words, we have to be sure that whatever we desire is good in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of desires, at least in my case, they go unnoticed.
Here, Prabhupada speaking from a lecture in Los Angeles, 1973. So bhakti means detachment. Vairagya Vidyani cha Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means detachment. Our suffering is due to our attachment. Because we are materially attached, I am desiring so many things materially. Therefore, Krishna is giving me opportunity to enjoy that material facility. Whatever I want, whatever I desire, of course I must deserve. First deserve, then desire. Suppose I want to become king, so I must have pious activities behind me so that I can become king. But Krishna can fulfill whatever you want. Krishna can give you. Krishna can give you even mukti, liberation, the Mayavadi's mukti. But he does not give very easily bhakti. That he does not give. Krishna can give you all material gifts, even up to mukti if you want. But when he gives bhakti, oh, that is special consideration. Because when he gives somebody bhakti, he becomes purchased by the bhakta. So therefore he considers Krishna becomes a tool in the hands of bhakta, although he's so the supreme powerful, just like Radharani, the symbol of the topmost bhakti. Radharani, so she has purchased Krishna. She has purchased Krishna. She's so powerful. Therefore, Vaishnavas, they take shelter of the lotus feet of Radharani, so that if she recommends, oh, here is a nice devotee, Krishna has to accept. So we can't get bhakti unless we're desiring like that, unless we're acting like that. That's one understanding I have.
I lost the thing on the screen. Now I got a full screen. I don't know how to get back to your screen. Wait, hold on. Okay. Yeah. Now what part are you calling attention to now?
First
Where
of
where
all,
You able to,
where's the dialogue? Can you put that back?
can you not see the screen?
Well, I don't
up in the
have it.
right corner view, if you hit view, and then you can look at the different ways you want to view it.
I'll
You.
do it again. I'll do it again. There it is. Krishna is giving me opportunity to enjoy that facility. Whatever I want, whatever I desire, of course, I must deserve. First deserve, then desire. So here Prabhupada is giving the example that if we're taking the shelter of the lotus feet of Radharani, then then she thinks that we're deserving of being recommended to Krishna. First of all, become fit. First of all, deserve, then desire. Why foolishly you desire something for which you do not deserve? That is your fault. That is misuse. Don't desire something without being deserving. So these are the process given how to think. I suppose that same thing could be applied to spiritual master, because Srila Prabhupada said, I want each of my disciples to have 10,000 disciples. So one may desire to become guru, not because they want to have maha plates and have their feet washed, but because Prabhupada has said, sometimes the Ritviks, they say like this, oh, you're wanting to be guru. No, Prabhupada's giving the order. He said, I want each of my disciples to have thousands of disciples. But in order to deserve that service of being initiating spiritual master, one has to deserve. That's another understanding I have. Nobody's prepared. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It just went out of sight. Can you scroll down just a little bit? Scroll it down just a little bit.
Is that going the right way or the other way?
The other way. When Krishna sees, where is it? What happened to it? Oh, then make it go up a little bit. When Krishna sees he is worshiping me with faith and reverence and love, then buddhi yogam, the damitam, he'll give you the intelligence, he's within you. Therefore, I was saying, first of all, become fit. So becoming fit means that faith and reverence of love has been displayed. This is buddhi yogam. Buddhi means intelligence. The buddhi yogam tam. I give you the intelligence by which you can come to me. You see, I give the intelligence by which you can see me, perceive me, feel my presence. but it comes by worshiping with faith and reverence and love. And we know the first thing that Krishna wants is faith, worshiping faith and love is with Srila Prabhupada. He wants to see how we are following his instructions and how we are worshiping him by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're showing our love for him by obeying him. Love means obedience. Then intelligence comes to understand the philosophy. It comes to understand how to teach it. It comes to understand how to keep on the path, how to make go the next stages in development. You see. So
Here's another. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, another reference to this in Vrindavan, 5th Canto Lecture 76, November 10th. So this is the way Brahmana, the India, the Brahmanas, their sons later on, later ages, taking into the facility offered to the Brahmanas. So without qualification of Brahmana, they wanted the facility for nothing, very cheap. Therefore, the Brahminical culture is a failure now. They should be real Brahmins, samoham, but nobody is prepared to practice samoham. Failure at the present moment. First deserve, then desire. So without deserving, they desired. Therefore, whole thing became false. That is not the purpose. Even somebody says that without culture, one can remain a Brahmana. But Shastra does not say that. Shastra says culture is the first consideration.
Yeah, and the first consideration of that culture, the four active principles. That's why when that big British patrician asked another devotee, "Can I become a Brahmin?" "Oh yes, we can become Brahmin. You just have to follow these four regular principles." And he said, "Impossible."
Yeah, the Lord of Zetland.
Yeah, the Lord of Java. So that man. So that's what Brahminical means. You can't. Brahman means it, but this Bhakti Yoga goes beyond that. I mean, that's a mode of goodness that has to be maintained. But we go, of course, beyond that by developing our consciousness of Krishna. That doesn't, that's more than following the four good principles. Like Srila Prabhupada said, to following the four good principles, one has to become a moral man, and one cannot become a moral man. No one cannot become a religious man without being a moral man. For us, religion means a postgraduate study of religion. That's why he gives the four active principles in addition to 16 rounds. Because without the four active principles being practiced properly, the 16 rounds cannot be practiced. And without the 16 rounds, one cannot follow the four active principles properly. So it's interlocked there. But the point is to go on beyond the stage of morality, just like Yudhisthira was remaining on the level of morality. He never told a lie in his life. So when time to him to lie, the white lie it was, he couldn't do it. Okay.
Here's one more. In Los Angeles, January 11th, morning walk. Unless Krishna gives opportunity, nobody can serve Krishna also. But he gives opportunity to the proper person. That is everywhere. If you want to become a manager of a firm, the proprietor of the firm will see whether you are able to do that. Then he will give the chance. Yes, this is reciprocal. Just like this shloka we're studying today. Krishna becomes Sarati. Does Krishna go to become Sarati, chariot driver, or a fat rascal and fool? Of a rascal and fool? He becomes Sarati of Arjuna. That has to be seen. And without any qualification, Krishna, become my Sarati. Krishna is not so easy. First of all, qualify. First deserve, then desire. First deserve, then desire. So how a Krishna conscious person can be desireless? The first is desire. I desire to serve Krishna. That's the beginning. Then Krishna will give you a chance as you deserve. First deserve, then desire, just like rascals. I desire to become God. That kind of desire will never be fulfilled. So we have more clarification on that point. Thank you.
So let's leave it.
Did you want to continue reading from
I would like to
where we
stop.
are in the Bible?
I would like to stop at this point.
Okay.
And at this sentence, which is something for us we can remember, was that now we come to the point that things which are seen by little use of intelligence cannot be automatic unless we accept someone as the user of or director of the intelligence. That's a real important point. Now we come to the point. In other words, there's purpose. And that purpose requires direction. And direction requires intelligence. So it can't be automatic because it has a direction, it has purpose. Automatic things don't produce, automatic is not produced by random movement. It appears to be automatic. Automatic cannot be, something that goes on automatic cannot be produced by random motion.
It's all pre-planned. It's all
Yeah, automatic means sequential. It means cause and effect. It means sequence. And that doesn't develop from automatic motion. So the intelligence has to be there. Director has to be there. And we're receiving instruction like a person takes from a higher authority, like a child from a parent. We have a desire, the parent gives us the direction we need to achieve that. So we're always under the intelligent control of the Supreme Lord. It's just a question of which direction it takes us. It depends on which direction we want to go. So always keep our focus on this cause. We'll be given intelligence how to serve the cause. Whatever way we're doing it, we require intelligence to do that. So the cause is our focus on the cause. The cause is given to us by Srila Prabhupada to explain to us. He explains to us what the cause is, what we servants are working for, what our master's mission is, and as his servants, how we help him achieve that mission. He says you should always think. He was talking about a deity worship. He's saying you should always think that you're assisting me in your deity worship. Or that we can say assisting him in the cooking, assisting him in cleaning the temple. Because we're servants of the master, and the master has his service. And we're assisting Srila Prabhupada in carrying out his orders, carrying out his mission. And that's what Krishna wants to see. He doesn't expect us to be worshiping him, trying to reach him directly. He wants to see us serving Srila Prabhupada. That's what really pleases him. Love me, love my dog. And then Krishna will reveal himself.
But serving Srila Prabhupada also means serving his servants.
Of course. It means not only serving Srila Prabhupada and serve Krishna, but we actually we see all the parts of cats and dogs and all the trees and everything like that. Like Srila Prabhupada says, when you walk on the grass, chant because it hurts.
Right.
So, and watch out for the ants. We don't want to kill a mosquito. Mosquito gives you notice. He's supposed to give notice. And that doesn't mean we can kill him. He's just doing his job.
Oh.
Mosquitoes.
Thanks for reminding me that I need to make some, I need to remember the essential oils besides citronella to repel them, because I go down to my river. I'm about 20 feet from a river, and I fill up my watering cans because I'm growing some arugula and fenugreek sprouts, a few things here. And yeah, the mosquitoes come to attack me when I go down the slope to the water. And I don't want to kill them, but you're reminding me that in order to
repel them. Just repel them.
Yeah, better to repel. Maybe I need to consult with Anuttama or Madhavi what their favorite anti-mosquito repellent is. Get their recipe.
I'm not an expert on that, except for citronella. I know it was pretty good.
Yeah, and lavender. It's a few others.
It's hard to understand when we see a bird or an ant or a tree that we're seeing equals. We're seeing other spirit souls that have the same right to live as we do. And they're the, Krishna says they're all my sons. All these living entities are my sons. So that's the unity and the diversity. To see everyone, all living entities, wherever there's life, is soul, is consciousness. It's like those little pebbles jumping in Shri Baba's shoe.
I think what becomes a challenge for some devotees, especially who are connected with an institution, spiritual institution, is that although we know that pleasing Srila Prabhupada's servants is also pleasing Srila Prabhupada, sometimes that servant of Srila Prabhupada may be making a demand or maybe endorsing something that it just bewilders us because we know Prabhupada would never endorse that. I don't understand how Prabhupada would agree with what this sannyasi or GBC, etc., is saying. And so that can be a little, I know for me over the years, it's been bewildering where I had a certain idea how I wanted to serve Krishna, but the GBC or sannyasi insisted I serve this way. And I found I brought a lot of grief upon myself by following what they said. And like Donavir Maharaj once said to me, um, the devotees in Amsterdam didn't want him to be GBC anymore there because they said we prefer to make our own mistakes than to make someone else's mistakes. So I'm just saying that's kind of an existential challenge because I've been trained to accept my senior godbrothers as Prabhupada's representatives, and I've always tried to defer to them and give them that honor. But over the years, I've seen that when I would blindly accept them because they're Prabhupada's representative, I would find that some of them, they can just kind of like put you on the back burner and forget about you forever. So then, discretion is the better part of valor, right?
Well, when someone gives an order, there's automatically a response in the servant to that order. And if initial response, a gut response, let's say, is that I don't want to do this or something's wrong with this, there's something missing in the devotional spirit, whatever it is, what does one do? Just defer to the authority? No, one checks with Srila Prabhupada. In other words, is this consistent with Srila Prabhupada's mission? What I'm being asked to do? That's the first comparison that has to be made with the standards. Srila Prabhupada's standards are there. So if someone asks you to do something that's not recognizable as Srila Prabhupada's standard, then it's not a question of obedience, blind obedience. If there's a doubt, the doubt has to be taken care of. Srila Prabhupada gives doubt as one of the symptoms of intelligence. So if one has doubt, one has to think, well, let me just confirm this. And there's no harm in asking a person about an order. It's like we don't request Srila Prabhupada to explain himself, but if somebody who's giving instruction that doesn't sound like something we get from Srila Prabhupada, we should ask. There's no harm.
I see how my false ego has prevented me because one time I had returned back from either Europe or India, and one of our congregational members said, Gaura Prabhu, the temple president is throwing people out at the Sunday feast into 30 below zero weather outside. I just thought I should bring that to your attention. So I went to the temple president, who I'd actually brought back. I don't like to use the term blooped, but he'd not been active for some years, and I reassured him that, he was safe and coming back. And he said, he wrote me a message saying that, no, I approached him, excuse me, Prabhu, people are complaining that you're throwing people out at the Sunday feast. And he said, if you got a complaint, take it to the board. And I carelessly said, because I didn't like how he kind of brushed me off, I guess I wanted a little respect. And I said, well, I've heard that the board is both the judge and the jury. One devotee had said that to me. In other words, you're not going to get very far by, challenging the board. And he wrote me a message saying, you're banned from the temple except for the last artik of the day. And I was shocked because I thought, wow, I used to give $1,500 a week to this temple as a brahmachari. I was temple president here. I used to wake the deities. while he was serving in France, I was serving in Quebec. And then just at a flick of a switch, you're banned until, except for the last Arctic. And he didn't even say until further notice. So because of my false ego reaction, I thought, well, I'll show him. He'll be sorry. I cook the Sunday feast. I lead the kirtans. I've given class. They'll be sorry. But guess what? I found out that nobody cared. Nobody asked, Gora, how we haven't seen you in months. Like, what's up? And so I called my own bluff, because I thought they'd be missing me, but they didn't at all. But then at that point, my faith in devotee association was cracked. I thought we're just a bunch of fair weather friends. When we need each other, when we need somebody, then we'll, but if, like Ray Charles said, nobody loves you when you're down and out. I was going through a divorce at the same time, and I was just kind of in a state of shock, trauma, also victim mode. I was confused and bewildered. But if I was more Krishna conscious and more in the mode of goodness, I could have asked him, excuse me, could I have a few minutes of your time? I understand you've banned me, except for the last Arctic of the day. How long is this going to go on for? Is this for 1 month, 6 months? And so finally, after about 5 months on Rath Yatra Day, two godbrothers, he and another godbrother, came knocking on my door. Gora, today's Rath Yatra. Will you come and lead kirtans? And I just remained silent, and I thought, boy, when I needed you, you kicked me hard. And now you're needing me, and I'm supposed to just forgive and show up to lead kirtan on Rath Yatra Day. But then I was thinking, wow, Gora, you are really in Maya. Here's one of your most favorite activities, leading kirtan on Rath Yatra Day, and you're refusing. And I was looking at that, and I'm thinking, wow, Maya's really got a grip on me. She's really got a hold on me. So I was observing all of this. So I'm just sharing that with you, opening my heart.
Did you go and lead the kirtan?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't go to I didn't go to Rath Yatra at all. I was so angry at everybody. I was resentful. I know it's not healthy.
Yeah. Well, it really goes back to the point when you learned about whatever it means to say that all the people were thrown out in the cold. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but that was the point of objection.
Yeah, what happened, I found out later, was previously, and I'd watched this for years, you have an English Sunday feast lecture going on in the temple room, and you got the Franco-Canadian, French-Canadian talk going on in the Prasadam hall. But in the meantime, people would come in and hang out in the hallway and talk and laugh, waiting for the lecture to be over so they could get the prasadam. They weren't interested in French. So he put an end to these, I don't know what you want to call them. I mean, prasadam devotees, I guess, would be a nice name to give them. Devotees that honor prasadam, but not really interested in hearing anyone's philosophy. And so he was putting an end to this. The temple president was going around, he was warning people, you got to go to the English or the French, or else you have to stay outside until it's, because their talks would disturb. So I think he had some legitimate reason, because this one devotee that was talking, he was transferring Krishna's plates, but he met a friend of his in the hallway. So they started talking it up, and the president gave him at least one, maybe two warnings. Look, finish your transfer and go to one of the two classes. But this devotee was somewhat of a smart ass. And so finally, the president picked him up and just threw him out in 30 below zero weather without even his boots on. So I think the Indian lady, she concerned motherly Mataji, but I put my hand in a hornet's nest. I didn't find out all the details why this person was being treated. And I mean, I still don't think it justified throwing him out in the snow. But this was a bad habit that devotees had fostered for some years. Blah, blah, blah in the hallway. When are they going to stop talking Bhagavad Gita and serve out the prasadam to us? Not good. So I got caught in the crossfire. I was trying to be a do-gooder, but I didn't receive the respect that I thought I deserved. And I suffered like hell. I lived across the hallway, across the alleyway from the temple. I was 100 yards, and I refused to go anymore. But I was looking at them and thinking, wow, just see how Maya's really, she's very effective. But I think a lot of devotees, they've had to deal with that, with being banned. No, what's it called? Due process given? You're not informed. You know, time out for you. I mean, I've been a head admin of a group of 20,000 and one of 908 Prabhupada disciples for 11 years. And I give people repeated, like there's one devotee, he loves posting about Ritvik philosophy. And we've had to tell him twice, Prabhu, this just causes fights and arguments. Please, give a quote by Prabhupada on self-sufficiency or book distribution, but please don't go to this contentious issue. We don't allow it here because it causes fights and arguments. And then his typical reaction was, okay, well, I won't go there anymore at all. Just like I was saying to one godbrother, please be gentle in dealing with Rupanuka Prabhu. We don't want to push him over the edge. Okay, well, I won't come anymore then. I said, no, that's not the solution. Just, he's going on 83. I mean, what's going to be like for you when you're 83? Don't you want devotees to be patient with you and kind and cut you some slack? I never saw him again.
Are you talking about a couple of those devotees who left?
That's right.
Well, I'm glad they left because they wouldn't allow me to speak and kept talking over me as if they were louder over me. And I got really upset because I was trying to show them that they were making a statement that was untrue when they were saying that Sridhar Maharaj and Narayan Maharaj had never get involved in the management, but they did. And I know all about that. And so I don't like to hear that kind of statement without having some chance to say what the actual facts are.
To respond, yeah.
And they wouldn't let me respond. They wouldn't let me respond. And so therefore, because I didn't agree with them, that's why they left. Not because I lost my temper with them, but because they didn't agree with me. They knew I was going to say something opposite. So we don't need that kind of and as far as what you were just describing before,
yeah,
my take on it,
yeah,
that the whoever the leader was mistaken. The leadership doesn't mean lording it over people. It doesn't mean using your authority on people like that, or what to speak of getting physically violent. That's not in the contract for leadership.
But you said even yourself, you carried a gun with you when it came to getting the donations. You were really ready to pull the trigger if they came to steal Krishna's Lakshmi.
Yeah, well, that's my nature. But nevertheless, I'm just describing that when you were doing this before, describing what happened, that kind of physical violence is not required on a situation like that. It requires explanation, and adjustment is made by the management. The people in the hall can understand. Anyway, it's a whole, you see how things, dominoes just fall.
Yeah.
So many things happen based on one misunderstanding, but it really goes back to the leadership.
I mean, our godbrother Lochanananda Prabhu was banned for 20 years by the former temple president of New York and the former GBC of New York because, he would hold them accountable for different things. He would ask them, why don't you stay for Guru Puja? Why do you go on the phone every day instead of and they didn't like that because he had been temple president himself. He knew what the proper standard was. And I'm thinking, wow, 20 years. And I'm thinking, where's the solidarity amongst our devotees? Why don't we stick up for one another? Because we know that we'll probably be the next one to get banned. So it's a culture of fear. I'm sorry, I'm digressing our whole discussion today.
Well, no, because I'm always pointing out the standard. Srila Prabhupada is a standard. Those things never happened when Srila Prabhupada was here.
Really?
No, he didn't allow that kind of management. Never did he.
It might have happened.
Never did he ban anybody like that. In fact, when one devotee was being criticized, he said to that person who was criticizing him broadly about, he said, now he'll never come back. Now he'll never come back because you're broadcasting these things.
It was one sannyasi godbrother fell down, and then he sent a letter out to all the temples. So and so Swami's fallen down, and then Prabhupada said, "You've made it that he can never return."
That's another example. Yeah. On the other hand, Srila Prabhupada also ostracized some sannyasis and told them they couldn't give lectures in the temples. They could just come for prasadam and that's it.
Wow! Even a
He did
sannyasi.
that. He did that with 4 sannyasis who were preaching different than they should have been. So, you know, we have to see how Srila Prabhupada behaved in these situations. And that, like I said, there's always a standard. If we take the trouble to compare with whatever happens with what Srila Prabhupada's standard gave us for human life, for civilization, behavior of leadership and followers, and it's all been very well laid out. But and all these things you described, these things would never happen in Srila Prabhupada's presence. If they did, he would rectify it himself.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Gaurav,
Anyway, I think if we could leave off at this point.
can I just say one thing? Just Gaurav Prabhu,
Sure.
sorry for that experience that you had, and I've never had experience like that, but I've seen it a lot, and it's one of the things that sort of pushed me to keep a distance. And I found the discussion on this verse is so pertinent to that point on 2 sides. One is that it's following the intelligence. It's understanding how to follow the intelligence, and if the intelligence isn't strong enough, then making those discriminations will go wrong. You know, who should be allowed and who should not be allowed. To make those decisions without following intelligence properly creates a problem. And the other one is on how the negative experience brings you closer to Krishna. So, you know, I feel like somehow your service that you've done here has brought us all closer to hearing Prabhupada and everything. So somehow that's by your endeavor, you know, so that maybe that experience also brought you to be able to do, you know, to have to think outside the box. Anyway.
Thank you. That's you're seeing the cup half full instead of half empty. Did you want to continue through the paragraphs, Rupanuga, or did you want to do a part 2 on this, or it's up to you?
It's up to you.
We could do it again. We could do it again, could we? Sorry.
We can't finish in one session. It's just not.
Okay.
I don't have that much energy. Plus, there's more to go. Another page, and I think the main point that I was trying to get across is to make an endeavor. We should all make an endeavor to detect the presence of the Lord in the heart. And when he is giving us instructions, when he's giving us direction, to become more aware of that happening, because it's going to happen to us in a more special way than for non-devotees. We're going to get direction for our developing our Krishna consciousness, direction for going in the right direction, not making mistakes, following Srila Prabhupada's instructions. We're going to get directions along those lines. And we have to be more, I believe, we should be more receptive to that. Because the Lord in the heart's Krishna. It's Krishna's arrangement for us. It's Krishna's expansion, his localized expansion. And he's right in our hearts. He's right in this body. And we worship Krishna as deity. We listen to his instructions, but also the same point is he's within us. And we have to take shelter more, I believe, and of his friendship and of his kindness and of his desire for us to go back home, back to Godhead. He's with us here for this reason, to guide us, to impel us, to prod us into going back to the family, going back to the spiritual world. So, and he's present. He's our friend. So I think we need to become more conscious of the Lord in the heart. And I thought this verse would help us understand more how he's present all the time. perhaps we should pray to him more often to protect us from making mistakes in our service and to give us inspiration. This is not concoction. This is what Srila Prabhupada tells us. In fact, there's a verse in the Gita where Krishna says, surrender unto him utterly. And he's talking about the Supersoul. So I think we could just finish this up next time. And keep in mind that our intelligence is the form direction of the Lord.
I think there's just one last sentence in that paragraph, the last to finish that paragraph. I believe the last sentence you read was every living being has his intelligence, and this intelligence being the direction of some higher authority is just like a father giving direction to his son. And then I'm not sure if you read the last sentence. A higher authority who is present and residing within every individual living being is the super self.
No, I want to go back to pick up from now we come to the point that the things which are seen by little use of intelligence cannot be automatic unless we accept someone as a user or director of the intelligence. And then that's part of that paragraph. And then down to what you just read. That's why I would like to begin where I just mentioned.
Okay, now we come to the point that the things which are seen by a little use of intelligence
That's a natural division there.
cannot be automatic. Yeah. I'm going to put that on my Facebook page.
In fact,
So,
you could
if
put
I
the rest,
understand you correctly, go ahead.
you could put that whole thing.
Go ahead.
If you're going to put that, then you should put the rest of the paragraph where it ends up with a higher authority who is present, residing within every individual living being. This is the super self. You have to have the conclusion. You have to have the conclusion.
Okay. If I may ask you, I was looking in my Bhagavatam and I thought I have, oh great, I've got one of the original Bhagavatams, but I look and it's not the 1977 edition and it also says animate. So you mean to tell me you have the 1972 edition? Is that what you have there?
Yes.
Wow.
I don't have. This is not my original. This is a later edition published by Krishna Books Incorporated, which I just recently got a whole set. And this Gita is a little. I mean, this Bhagavatam is a little smaller in size. Takes up a lot less space, but it's got all the paintings and it's got the original text. Everything,
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
But there's been so many additions and changes. See? So I want to use the original. So
once upon a time, I was telling the KBI devotees, listen, if you want to do things the way Prabhupada said, he told Karandar in 1972 that 50% of all your profits has to go towards ISKCON building projects. And I asked Jayadvaita Swami, and he said that the BBT that year had donated something like $365,000 for ISKCON building projects from BBT profits. So I said, if you want to be in line, I was speaking to Veda Guya Prabhu. I said, if you want to be in line with Prabhupada's program, then you also need to give 50% towards Prabhupada's building projects. Because the reason that they're able to sell books cheaper than the BBT is because they don't donate money towards BBT building projects. And I've also heard that, they have to pay court fees because I don't know exactly what's still outstanding in the whole BBT KBI court case. But as time has gone by, I've kind of come to realize that maybe we do have KB, I mean, you know better than me, Rupanuga Prabhu. You were there when Prabhupada created the BBT, and that would be a fascinating story to hear. But we know that Prabhupada created the BBT independent of ISKCON so that nothing would happen to the BBT. But yet it seems that it did happen. And maybe we should be grateful to the KBI folks for helping to preserve those original editions even though it seems that some valuable edits have been done, but you've pointed out today that the edit that was done doesn't make sense. Animate and automatic.
KBI is not managed in the same way that BBT is managed. Their expenses are different and the quality of their books are different. It costs them more. You compare the quality of the publications of KBI, just take the Gita, for example. There's such a difference in quality, it's not even worth discussing. So they cost them more to do books. They don't have a whole fleet of free book distributors to collect money for them.
Right.
They have to give a competing amount for selling the books to get people to distribute them. They're also limited where they can't distribute to temples. They're not allowed to distribute it for temples. That's the law. That's the law that was given, mandate that was given by the court.
I see. That's why we don't see them at ISKCON temples.
Well, they don't have to be there, but they're not allowed to sell to temples officially. It's up to the temples, but they're not allowed to purchase.
I
So
see.
the question is, and there's another question, is that the volume, the number of books published makes a difference. KBI's volumes don't match the volumes that are published by BBT. Therefore, they have to pay more money. They have to have more shipments. They have to have more containers. They have a much higher overhead. That is not possible for them to give 50% and besides, the question is now, really, what happens to that 50%? They talk about, how much of that money actually goes. And even if it does go, look how long the Mayapur projects have been going on now, all these years. And there's been even investigations about corruption a number of times. A couple of times, Ambarish threatens to stop giving donations unless the corruption was straightened out.
Embezzlement of funds.
Yeah, so many things go on. So, you can't compare KBI. This propaganda you just gave comes from BBT. That's one of their claims against KBI, that you don't try and discredit them.
I see.
But the real discredit comes upon BBT for not only changing, but reducing the quality of their books.
Quality meaning taking out so many paintings?
The paper, the paintings, the very appearance. These original books can't be matched. The covers and everything, these are all just like they were originally printed.
You're saying that's the KBI quality?
Yeah, KBI quality is up to Srila Prabhupada's standard.
Interesting.
And plus, you look at the Bhagavad Gita that BBT produces, it's so much, the paper, the color, everything is so cheap, much cheaper, you see.
Maybe done in India, maybe.
Well, KBI books are printed in India also.
I see.
Anyway, no matter what criticism they make about KBI's books are the original ones. There's no controversy involved.
In other words, you're saying that the rule that Prabhupada applied to BBT books back in 72 would not be applicable in this circumstance because devotees have felt impelled to create their own publishing firm in order to preserve the legacy of Prabhupada.
Yeah, their expenses are different. There's more expenses for them because of the volume. It's just the sheer volume makes a difference. The more you print at the same time, the cheaper it is.
Sure.
The more money you have left over.
Yeah.
So 50% means after overhead. And there's so many ways you can twist the figures involved, but the ultimate judgment has to be on the product. The product meets Srila Prabhupada's standards.
I think that the ultimate thing should be whether they're following what the trust document says, because that, Prabhupada gave the copyrights to the trust and the trustees own the copyrights. The trustee basically sold the rights to print the books for $350,000, and that's not allowed in the trust. That could have easily been taken out in court if they would have basically just listened to common sense. Because all you have to do is prove one person who is a beneficiary, which I set myself up as a beneficiary, asked the BBTI for a donation for our farm project because I said I was a beneficiary. And they denied me they said, well, you have to go through your GBC before we can even consider it, which is completely against what the trust says, that the GBC should not be involved in this. It was completely up to the trustees. When they denied it, at that point, I had a case for a lawsuit because then you can't have a lawsuit unless you have some damages. So you have to be a party to the trust, which means you had to either be a beneficiary or a trustee to be able to sue the trust. Anyway, it didn't work because I didn't get any support. It was just me. Well, and Madhavi. And a few devotees. I mean, there were a few devotees that served the papers, but it needed to we just needed to go to court and prove that I was a beneficiary. And at that point, we could have said we want the trustees back because the other trustee, Hansaduta, had no right to sell the copyrights for $350,000. So anyway, I looked into it in great depth, and I even wrote a lawsuit.
Is that when your study of law began?
Well, it was one of those synchronicities, it's like we're talking about the Lord in the heart. And Krishna arranged that I met this neighbor who's a really clever attorney. She can look at law from the prospect of what's natural law, like, the law that Krishna gives. And she said, you are a beneficiary because if you're not a beneficiary, who is a beneficiary? And when Prabhupada was on the planet, he showed by his example who he would give donations to, what he would use the BBT, the 50% for. And according to Hansaduta, who was coaching me through all this, that he as a trustee would have given our project some funds. Not that I necessarily even wanted the funds, but I just wanted to set them up so that I was injured. Anyway, that's water under the bridge. I don't think there's any time.
Are we still broadcasting?
Oh,
Yeah,
uh-oh.
I can stop.
No, I don't think I said anything that can't be said. I mean, I didn't say the bad word.
I know what I'm saying. I thought we were sort of winding up, and
Okay.
I don't see everybody still present. So, I mean, are we still? I mean, I'd like to pick up where we left off.
We're one devotee less. We started with 7, and now we have 6. Because Jivan Mukta he had to go to one of his trailer parks to deal with some business.
So what we just did, I didn't understand that to be it's going to be like a regular, the discussion we just had on this verse.
We
Was
can
that
finish
bro-
it.
was
We
that
could finish it.
broadcast?
We could finish it tomorrow if you want.
But I'm asking you a question.
Or even weekly.
Was that broadcast?
Yes, it's on YouTube for others to benefit.
I think if we stick to the verse for this session as closely as possible and have it regularly, I don't mean to be, I'm speaking out of turn here, but I really feel that Rupanuga Prabhu, maybe you should, we can wait and do it again when you're feeling better.
Yeah, I never intended this to be a broadcast. I was intending it to be, I guess, closed session on this particular verse. And we got into the habit of getting off the point, which we often do with the regular Zooms, which is set up as part of the Zoom setup, I take it. But this got out of, again, we got off the subject. And I wanted to stop at a certain point and pick up again later. But it seemed like it just kept going on and on and on. So I would like to, if you all want to, I mean, it's up to you. If you want to meet again to finish the verse, we can do that.
I want to.
I want to.
I want to. We have two paragraphs left to go. The
But
last two paragraphs.
this has been the most valuable, like it's been very valuable, I think, just to focus on the like Istagosti based on the purport only that we're reading. It's really helpful.
Powerful.
If we did it in a week, would that be would you be feeling better on a Saturday again, or any other day, or?
I think that's a good idea if we can get everybody back. But I really don't want to open this up as a general Zoom. I want to keep it to the persons we started with and finish with. Okay, because it's coming in the middle of this is not going to be helpful. You bring in other persons who haven't been following, they're not going to take it as seriously as we're doing. So I think we should just finish up with the same devotees who have been studying it so far. And then we can set up for another Saturday. I mean, that would be acceptable to me. I mean, maybe this coming Saturday.
Is tomorrow too soon? Because Rath Yatra season is coming here very soon, and I won't be around. I don't want to rush you. I'm more concerned about your health than anything. If you're not feeling well enough, but if tomorrow you're feeling well enough, then we could try again tomorrow. What do you think? Want to see how you feel?
Yeah, could see about that. If you're not going to be around, you're leaving next week.
9th and 10th. Well, there's Canada Day, which is like your American Independence Day, July 1st in Ottawa. I don't know if I'll go for that. That's a big weekend. 500,000 people in the street. And the 9th and 10th is Montreal's Rath Yatra, and 15th and 16th is Toronto's Rath Yatra. So that's all July. But we can try meeting back tomorrow at 2 or 3, whatever time you want, and see if you come.
Okay, I'll be there. Just let me know what time.
What's a good tentative time, Rupanuga Prabhu? No pressure on you, but
3 o'clock's okay.
okay. Why don't we shoot for 3 tomorrow? Is that would be noon your time?
That's good.
Okay.
Okay. Is that good?
I'll be away tomorrow, but I'll bring my laptop so I can tune in.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
We'll finish up. Thank you for coming, Ananda Hari. Thank you for bringing us the luck of the Irish. The Lakshmi, the luck. I heard luck comes from Lakshmi. Vanchakalpa Trubhischa, Kripasandubhyecha, Patitanang Pavanibhyo, Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Krishna willing, see everyone at 3 o'clock tomorrow. My dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, please cure Rupanuga Prabhu so he can be with us tomorrow.
I won't be cured, but I'll be there.
That's pretty close.
I will.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhupada.
I had a quick question about the Bhagavatam. The one that's correct, that's the 30 volume. It's got 30 volumes in it, up to the 10th canto. That's the one that's correct.
The one I have goes up through, I believe it's the small version of the beginning of the 10th canto. There's I think it ends up with Brahma.
Brahma Vimoha and Leela.
Yeah,
Got 30 volumes.
I'm not sure how many. I think so.
30 volumes, that was the Philippine edition, wasn't it?
The first, well, as far as I understand, one that went through 1 through 10 had 30 volumes, and that's the one they're selling on krishnastore.com for under $200. I was thinking of getting one. I just want to make sure that that it lines up.
Krishna Store is not going to sell KBI's books. Krishna Store, is that from Australia?
I don't. They're here. They're in America.
They sell KBI books.
Yeah, they have all the originals apparently. I used to order from them.
Mother Devaki fulfills them. She ships them out of Alachua.
Oh, they come out of Alachua.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see if we can figure it out tomorrow more so.
Let's just have to find out who publishes them.
Okay.
This one here explains this is published by KBI. It's licensed from the book trust. They publish on a license. They receive a mandate from the court that allows them to produce the original one. And that's mentioned here on the inside the face page. that it's BBT but licensed to KBI. Okay.
All right. I appreciate just you coming through and facilitating all this.
I both.
Jai, Hare Krishna.
Radhe Radhe.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Gaura Prabhu, thank you. Hare
Thanks,
Krishna.
Hari. Look
Thank you very
forward to your association soon enough.
Happy.
Hari
Appreciate
Hari.
it.
Hari well.